If you are thinking about selling your home in the OKC Metro, there's a good chance that you've got some questions. Now, whether you're selling for sale by owner or you've hired a realtor, the key to a successful sale is all in the details. Now, I've put together this 12-part guide to go into all of those details so you can maximize every bit of profit that is in your house. Now, don't forget, watch until the very end because I've included some golden nuggets of wisdom that will save you thousands in the long run. All that sound good? Let's get started. So you have decided that you are going to sell your house, which is great. Obviously, you do not necessarily need to hire a real estate agent. It is in your best interest, in my opinion, but it's not something that's required. So whether you're looking at this guide because you're looking to sell for sale by owner, or you're just curious what the process is, this guide will just break it out in 12 steps, what it takes to sell your house and what you can expect. So I will say that post-NAR settlement, and for those of you who don't know, there was a National Association of Realtors settlement that went into effect August 17th. It's a whole thing. I get a lot of calls still to this day of people that are like, hey man, I'm selling my house, but can I do X, Y, and Z? Or am I allowed to do ABC? Or do I have to do LMNOP? If you have those questions, give me a call. Even if you don't want to list your house with me, I don't care, man. Just if I can provide value to you in any way, shape, or form, I got you. Now, don't forget, stick around to the very end because there is an Easter egg that I put in, and actually it can be really helpful. So whether or not you just scroll through right now, or if you stick through, I mean, you can go chapter by chapter, and don't forget to check it out. Chapter 1, here we go, market analysis and pricing. So this is one of the most critical steps because you really do want to have your pricing set up and locked in from the jump. So what you're going to want to do is run a CMA, comparative market analysis. It's easier to do if you're a real estate agent because we have access to the MLS and we can see all the data. You can do it through Zillow and Redfin and Trulia. It's just you might not get some of the most accurate information and it's not the easiest. But you need to use the sales from your neighborhood, right? Look at the price per square foot versus the overall price because a $300,000 house that sold that was 1,500 square feet is much different than a $300,000 house that sold that is 3,000 square feet. So always look at price per square foot. Obviously, you're going to want to look into market trends because whether the inventory, supply, and demand is affecting the sale or interest rates, as we have seen lately, all of those things come into play when you are marketing your property. I always use appraiser metrics because that is the most safeguarded way to get the right numbers dialed in. So plus or minus half a bath, same number of bedrooms. Usually they'll give you about 15%, sometimes 20% of the total area square footage. And then you have to have one from the subdivision and then you can start looking out from there. But it's important that you do use those appraiser metrics. All right, asking price versus selling price. So it's important to note that we as real estate professionals do not set market value. The Fed doesn't set market value. The sellers don't set market value. The buyers don't set market value. Well, caveat, yes, the buyers do set market value. So the only thing that sets market value is what a buyer is willing to pay for that thing. So if you have some time on your hands, you can perhaps list something a little over market value because you don't have to sell right away and it could sell in 6 to 12 months. But if you want to price it at market value, there's a higher likelihood that you're going to sell that house in the desired time frame, which is typically about 30 days. I mean, let's be real, faster is better, but wherever you price it is very much going to reflect how long that sale will be. Now, if you price it under market value, you're going to get a lot of eyes on that property, and the more eyes you get on it, the more offers you will receive. There are some pricing pitfalls, so if you're overpricing in the beginning, just be prepared for a longer sale. To get a competitive edge, you want to price at market value or lower. Again, more eyeballs equals more offers, and in the words of Dennis from It's Always Sunny, separate emotionally. Take all emotion out of the sale because it's only going to trip you up. This is a business transaction and you should treat it as such, even though I understand that you may have raised your family in those four walls and, if they could talk, blah, 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 but it will do you a world of good to put all of those emotions on the back burner. And look, you can be as happy as these guys with his little, weird slippers and her ninja skirt. Preparing the home. One thing that I always recommend for sellers is you could either get a pre-listing home inspection or you can just use your best judgment. Go through and make any repairs that might be on your to-do list that you haven't yet gotten around to. Definitely declutter, take all the knickknacks, bric-a-bracs, and everything else out of the way because If you can make something as much of a blank canvas as you can, buyers will then come in and start to emotionally and psychologically move in, which is what you want. So the fridge is always one thing that is a mecca for all sorts of stuff, and I'm guilty of it. I have my daughter's drawings and schedules and calendars and postcards and all of that, but take it all off, shine up the fridge. It'll do you a lot of good in the end. And for those looking to preserve some sort of privacy, take any pictures down, depersonalize the house if you don't want those, pictures of your kids to go out towards Zillow and some of the other syndicates. And then obviously curb appeal. First impressions count. So go out, fix up your garden bed, mow the lawn, do the things that you need before you take pictures. Some people will even go as far as paint. They could touch up some paint in the front or all over the house. A lot of people will paint the front door just because that is something that's, it is literally the first thing that a buyer is going to come into is to, interact with that front door. Now, in terms of staging can do a world of good, but it also is a cost associated. So they typically go by room as well as per month. And so depending on what your expectation is for your life cycle of the sale, maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. If you have a high-end renovation, I have seen it where it is very, very much beneficial. Maggie Barnes at Live Boho does a great job. You want some contact info? Hit me up. Marketing is one of the most important things that you can do to ensure that your home sells. This is not like 2020 or in the pandemic where if you just put a property up for sale, you were going to be in multiple offers. Now it is back to a standard and normal market, and you have got to market your property effectively and as well as you can. What I think is most important for my business, at least, and if you're watching this as a FSBO seller or otherwise, as much as it might hurt, you're going to need to start to market that property. Throwing it up on Zillow might be enough, but if you really want to reach the maximum amount of eyes, the best way, in my opinion, is going to be with digital marketing. I personally market through Meta, so Facebook and Instagram, as well as the Google ecosystem with YouTube and Google. And so I can typically get anywhere from 75 to 85,000 impressions on any of my listings in the first 2 weeks. That way, I know that anybody that is in the market has at least seen the property. So this is something that you should not sleep on. Another thing, get professional photos. Unless you are a professional photographer, do not get your old Nokia flip phone and take pictures of your house, because you will be doing yourself a disservice. It's embarrassing and nobody will show it. If you have any unique features of the home, such as a waterfall inside or a catacombs in a labyrinth, get a Matterport. These are cool 3D tours that somebody in New York City can look at the home, they can walk through it virtually, they can measure, they can really get a feel without having to travel all the way here. It's great for attracting out-of-state clients. I highly recommend that. Now, make sure that you have drone shots. We're living in the future, and if you're not getting good content, be it photos or videos with a drone, you need to rethink your strategy. Showings. Be flexible, because it's going to be someone else's schedule that's likely going to be on a tour when they're tucking yours in there. So the more showings you have, the more potential offers you're going to get. So accept as many showings as you can. Open houses. This is another great way that you can capture tons of buyers in one single fell swoop. Typically, it is 2 to 4 on a Sunday. You can get anywhere from 8 to 12 groups, depending on how well you have promoted it. And then if there are any other homes on your street, man, pay attention. See what your competition is like. Are they better? Are they worse? Because one of them is going to be better, right? And that's going to be your litmus test as to what's going on in your specific area. If you look into the triangle of facts, right? Price, location, and condition. Now, these are the three things that you can affect when you are selling, right? The location, you can't really affect. Condition, you can to an extent. You can make some modifications and renovate and do whatnot. But price is going to be the number one thing that you can do to alter those facts and to bring more offers, buyers, and, ultimately a sale. And, all right, speaking of offers, here we go. Price is not everything. Look at the whole picture. Now, 99% of the time, yes, price is going to be what drives a seller for accepting an offer, but look at other factors, what the contingencies are, how long of an escrow date, what kind of financing they have, because not all offers are the same. Cash offer, they can close in as early as 10 days, provided the title company can accommodate and get all their work done. There's the least amount of contingencies. Conventional is going to be your next most common. That typically requires 10 to 20% down, standard terms with a 30-day close. FHA and VA are really similar. The Federal Housing Authority and the Veteran Affairs Group. FHA, they might have potential appraisal required repairs that you as the seller are going to need to repair. So with an FHA offer, they can put 3.5% down, but because it's a government-backed loan, the government wants to make sure that the house is in livable condition. So one thing that I see all the time is peeling paint. That is a strike that you'll have to fix. If you have broken windows, holes in the floor, things like that, there's a whole list on the FHA website that you can look at. Multiple offers used to happen all the time. They're still happening on occasion now, but they're not as common as they once were. But make sure that you are looking at the whole picture, because if you have a $415,000 cash offer that will close in 10 days versus a $435,000 VA loan that might bust or close in 30 days, or even a conventional one that will take 45 days, there's just a lot of different factors. Price isn't always the best motivation. As the seller, you can negotiate. Once you have those offers on the table, you can still negotiate and try to get those terms a little higher. Speaking of negotiations, the best strategies that you could have as the seller are obviously to counter any unfavorable terms. You want to get a higher price, better conditions, whatever it is. Always keep an open line of communication. Be honest, be open, be professional. I've seen more deals fall apart when the communication breaks down. So just keep an open mind, keep an open line of communication. And on negotiations, I mean, obviously it doesn't always mean highest price. Flexible terms can also be important for a transaction. Once you've negotiated all that and you're going under contract, here we are. Okay, so you got a purchase agreement, you got a contract. Awesome. The contract itself is going to consist of the offer price plus the earnest money, which is typically 1%. They're using an Oklahoma Real Estate Commission or OREC contract. It'll also highlight how long of close, usually 30 days, and then at which title company it's closing at. If there are extensions that are necessary, you can always do that. If you're approaching the closing date and you need more time, just send an extension to the buyer and make sure that both parties agree. Anything can be agreed upon between these two parties during the transaction, provided it is in writing and signed and agreed by both parties. Contingencies are a thing, man. Make sure that you are aware of them. Financing contingency, appraisal and inspection contingency. The buyer has a lot of built-in outs from the contract, and so you want to make sure that you're aware of the timelines and keeping all of that straight. The buyer does choose the title company, and more often than not, a lot of the title companies in the OKC Metro are all great for the most part. Now, once all the terms are agreed upon, everybody will sign. Earnest money does have to be delivered to the title company within 72 hours or 3 days. That is held in escrow in a separate account, and if the contract busts, you can't just call the title company and say, yo, give me my money. You have to have a form from the buyer that the seller agrees on, and then they will release the funds, but it is not instantaneous and it does take some time. So if there are any disputes, you might have to go through arbitration or mediation, and with anything in bureaucracy, it does not go fast. Now, disclosures are also really important, so make sure that you have filled out your residential property condition disclosures and have the buyer sign those. That states that he has read what condition that the property is in and protects you. Most documents these days are e-signed through either .loop, DocuSign, a number of different programs, but it makes it really easy just to go through and bing, 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 and you've signed like 12 papers. But these are all legally binding documents, so make sure that you are reading these, you understand them, send them to a lawyer if you're representing yourself or if you're comfortable with it. Just know that if you're signing something that is unfavorable to you, then that is a legally binding contract. On to inspections. So during inspections, the buyer typically has a 10 to 14 day contingency window in which they can access the house, go through, do all of their inspections, reviews, investigations. And if they find that during that time that the home is unsatisfactory, then they can cancel that contract and they'll receive their earnest money back within that first 14 days. Now, once they've passed their inspection window or contingency window, then that money typically goes to the seller, but you still might have to duke it out. So just make sure that you are abiding by the guidelines. So the buyer pays for the inspections. It's their responsibility. They will have to schedule that with you, or if your home is listed, with the listing agents. Per the OREC contract, they're required to give 24 hours notice, but they are allowed to come into the house for whatever they need to make sure that everything is up to snuff for them to continue in on that contract. There are several types of home inspections. You're going to have a general home and then a termite inspection are the two most common. General home is going to look over everything. Termite, self-explanatory. The bank will not loan without a clear termite, so you'll need what's called an ODAF, Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, FF, whatever. You need that before the bank will say, okay, cool, here's your money for your mortgage. So those two things are required. Well, the termite is required. General home is highly recommended. And then if the inspector says, yo, you might want to get a roofer out, or the floors are a little wonky, get the foundation company out, or any other trade specific thing, you could definitely do all of those things. And quick side note, if you need any help with any of this, let me know, because I've worked with some of the worst and I've worked with some of the best, and I will give you the best. This is everything that comes with a home inspection. This comes from InterNACHI, which is the National Association of Home Inspectors. They'll look over these 10 items, and then obviously if applicable, they'll do pools or well or septic or whatever. You might have a specialist come through that looks at the fireplace, or a plumber, electrician, HVAC, whatever. But a decent and or licensed home inspector will look at all of these items. Once the inspections are completed, the buyer is going to submit what's known as a TRR, treatment, repair, replace. If you got bugs and your wood's getting all eat up, he's going to ask you to treat the property. It's probably going to set you back around, $1,500 depending on the size. If the buyer finds that there are termites present at the house, then they will ask you, the seller, to remedy that, and you'll have a termite company come out and treat the home. They'll go around the perimeter and they'll use a chemical called Termidor. Sometimes they go in with veneers, but typically they just drill into the foundation. But that is something that you as the seller most likely are going to be responsible for. And don't trip, because it is literally on about 75 to 80% of homes either have been treated or will be treated in the future. Probably that, I don't know, I just made that statistic up, but a lot of homes have it. You're going to be asked to repair any faulty safety items or replace any mechanicals that may impact the functionality of the home. On to contingencies. We talked about this briefly. Your inspection contingency is typically about 14 days on a standard or at contract. The appraisal really depends on the type of loan, but if a home doesn't appraise at value, then the buyer is only going to get loaned on the appraised value. And so if you're selling a $500,000 house and the appraisal comes back at $490,000, either you need to drop that price $10K, the buyer needs to come up $10K, or you guys can meet in the middle. They bring $5,000, you drop $5,000. Now, your financing contingencies basically just state that the buyer is able to secure financing. Usually they're going to get a preliminary approval or a pre-approval that once it goes through underwriting, then they're going to get the legitimate, you're good. But they have all these contingencies baked in that the buyer can leave the contract without harm, basically. I mean, they'll be out money for inspections and appraisals, but they will receive that 1% earnest money back. Pre-closing. All right, we're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Now that you're almost at the end, the buyer is going to have their final walkthrough. They'll do this usually, 2 or 3 days, maybe 1 day before closing. They're going to walk the property and make sure that any items that you had agreed to on the TRR are completed. All the repairs, if there's been any treatments, replacing of anything. You're going to want to confirm with title that everything is good to go. And quite frankly, you're going to want to do this at least a week before. Just make sure that your closing date is good, that your documents are all in order. You do not want to get to close and then realize that something wasn't done and that pushes the closing date back. Do make sure to cancel your utilities. I usually tell people once we are under contract, if I'm representing the seller, that, hey, don't forget to schedule your utilities to be shut off on this day. If you forget, then you're going to be paying for the buyer's gas, water, and electric for a while. Now, once everything has been done, you're going to get what's known as clear to close, which is like the best thing to hear as a realtor, because that means that you're there, right? Like that, you just need to wait it out. If you get clear to close on the 1st and you're closing on the 15th, not a lot can go wrong at that point. Now, I've had deals bust at the 11th hour, and so anything can and will happen until you have that wet signature at the closing table. Don't get overexcited. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Make sure that you are at the closing table with final documents in hand before you start to celebrate. Now, on closing day, bring 2 forms of ID. One of them is a government issued, whether it's a driver's license or passport. One of them could even be like a debit card. They just need a piece of plastic with your name on it. And if you're getting a wire, make sure that you have your bank information, your routing number, your checking number. Do make sure that you're communicating directly with the bank if you have a wire, because wire fraud is rampant and you don't want somebody to walk away with your $500K. Bring any keys, garage door openers, things of that nature, and a strong wrist, because you're going to be, writing your name all over. And for what it's worth, if you're married, you have to bring your spouse. It's 1 to buy, 2 to sell. So even if you bought the property by yourself, single, if you got married during that time, your spouse, your wife and or husband will need to sign the deed, and it's something that is required. You cannot sell the property without your spouse present. 1 to buy, 2 to sell. Closing process is pretty straightforward. You're going to be broken out into 2 rooms. Buyer typically goes first. They go through, they sign everything in one. Then the seller goes in another room. They sign everything. And at the closing table is where the ownership transfers. So once you have that wet signature, you have officially sold that house. As it says right here, I mean, look at the generic white couple. You just sold your house. Now, don't forget to deposit that check if you got a paper check walking around. That is not something that you want in your back pocket. I usually tell people, go get a wire. So post-close, there's really not a lot. You've already done everything. If you're using this guide as a little help whenever you're selling for sale by owner, maybe you can, give me a call and say, hey man, I sold my house. I just wanted to say thank you. I know a lot of realtors are going to be pissed. They were mad at me when I put this up last time. And I will say, if any of this is too much, right? It is a lot. I'm not going to lie. It is a lot of things to do to sell a house. And if you're not familiar with these steps inherently, if you don't do this day in and day out and are sharp and know all the ins and outs and the people and the regulations and the requirements, it might be something that you want some help with. And if you do need some help, then let me know, or call your friend who's a realtor, because I know you got 5 of them. All right. Well, now with that, that's it. You've done it. You've made it. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Look at these 2 people. They're so proud of you too. They're so proud they don't even have shoes on. That's how proud of you they are. Well, if you do have questions about any of the stuff that we went over, let me know. This is my office line. I'd love to talk to you. You can hit me up. You can email me. You can text me. I'm on all the social channels. Oh, that's right. The Easter egg. Oh my gosh. Okay. So if you've made it till the end, which I am offering you and you alone who have made it to the very end. If you are listing your house and if you are selling your house, I will give you the end of the video discount. So give me a call. You got to reference the end of the video discount. I'll come out. We can talk about listing your house, selling your house, what it looks like. I have a much more polished and professional listing presentation, if you will. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next one.